I'd like to call this March 4th meeting of the Hampton School Board to order. Ms. Bowers, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Harper?
Here.
Ms. Henry?
Here.
Mr. Kilgore?
Here.
Mr. Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Samuels?
Present.
Ms. Smith? Here. Ms. Mugler?
Here. Let the record show that all of our school board members are in attendance, along with our division superintendent, Dr. Linda Shiflett, our school board attorney, Ms. Nancy Reeves, and our school board clerk, Ms. Carolyn Bowers, as well as members of our division leadership team. At this time, I'll turn things over to our student liaison, Mr. Malcolm Richardson, to make some introductions.
Tonight, giving the invocation will be Julia Deseski, a senior at Kickingham High School. She likes classes, but her favorite part about school is the clubs. She is the secretary of the SCA and is also a member of the Keyettes, an all-girls club. She has been accepted into JMU and will know about her UVA acceptance by April 1st. She wants to study business and maybe start her own someday. Let's give it a hand for Julia.
Hello. I'm going to start with a quote by Rita Pearson. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Her words are significant in the fact that indeed, you all who are here before me tonight have the power to change a child's life for the better. You all have impacted my life personally and will continue to impact students that come after me in Hampton City Schools. The importance of education is established in a child's life in elementary school with the right leaders and teachers, and it also continues throughout middle and high school. I have much hope that tonight you all will put your best foot forward with much strength and dignity, but most importantly, a big heart. Let us reflect upon the words of the wise philosopher Confucius. Education breeds confidence, confidence breeds hope, and hope breeds peace. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Julia, for joining us tonight and giving us some words of inspiration to start off our meeting. And I've looked around the room. I think you must have driven yourself here. I don't think your parents are here, are they?
Yes. Yes.
Do you have members of your school family here?
Currently, I do. Actually, my Principal Morton, is here tonight with me. So.
Great. Thank you. So you're just waiting on one letter of acceptance then, huh?
A few, but UVA has been my top choice for a long time. I've been currently accepted to George Mason, JMU, and I have received scholarships to Mary Baldwin College and Ferrum College.
Oh, okay, great.
So.
Well, good luck. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you very much.
That you picked at the beginning was so appropriate for all of us. Rita Pearson came to our school division a number of times and was quite beloved by folks in this division, and it was just good to hear somebody quote her. Yeah.
Appropriate for education based. So.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. And you have an AP assignment tonight, so you need to skedaddle.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's for AP. It's actually for AP English. At my school, it's very cool because twice a month we watch a movie that has to do with the poetry that we are studying to help us with the AP exam, and we focus on it, and we have an assignment. So tonight I'm watching actually Frankenstein so the one with Robert De Niro in it. So it was very good, and yeah, we're studying that in class. So.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Thanks
again for coming.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good night. Not to everybody, just to Julia. We'll move on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda tonight consists of items 2.01, Personnel Report 15-04, Field Trips, item 2.02, item 2.03 is minutes from the school board meeting of February 4, and item 2.01 are minutes from the special school board meeting of February 4. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, move approval of consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kilgore and seconded by Mr. Pearson that we approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to superintendent and staff reports, I'll turn things over now to you, Dr. Shiflett. Oh, yes, she just reminded me. This is why I have her sitting beside me, so that I can remember everything that's going on. We do have some very important guests with us tonight. I'd like to recognize they've joined to hear one of the reports tonight, but we have several members of our city council. Vice Mayor Linda Curtis is with us, along with Teresa Van Esch Schmidt, Donnie Tuck, and Will Moffitt, council members, city council. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And also in our audience tonight, I'm looking to spot them, but we have with us members of the Langley Elementary School SCA officers. They're right in the midsection back there.
Why don't you stand up?
If y'all stand up and let us see you. So they're attending for the first hour tonight, so we'll try and talk fast so you can hear as much of this incredible business that we're going to do tonight. But they're here to listen and hear about leadership and action and how the school board operates. So it's great to have you all with us. Thank you for joining us. Now, Dr. Shiflett, I'll let you go on to your report.
Thank you, Ms. Mugler. Our first report this evening is a report about a very exciting partnership that we've had in Hampton City Schools for a number of years. It's called Communities in Schools. And really the critical part of Communities in Schools is the number of resources that it brings to Hampton City Schools. And I'd like to introduce to you the Hampton Roads Executive Director, Mr. Quentin Brown, who will be giving the presentation tonight. Quentin, I'll turn it over to you.
I guess while the slide is being pulled up, I do want to thank the school board and Superintendent Shiflett for the opportunity to present to you collectively, as well as to those in the room that are listening today. I want to do three things today in the brief time that I will be before you. For those that may not be familiar with Communities in Schools, I do want to demonstrate who we are on a national scale. I think when you've never heard about us, or any organization for that matter, I think it's important to demonstrate the foundation that we're coming from and the value that we add wherever we are. Secondly, I want to talk about what we're doing in Hampton Roads, and specifically in Hampton. It's important to hear about where we come from, and I feel like I want to talk to the audience behind me. But it's important to hear about where we come from and what we've done over the past 35 years, but it's more critical to understand what we're doing right here in your backyard. And then I want to talk about where we're headed. What are we going to do? How are we going to take this to scale? What do we expect to do for the students and communities here in Hampton Roads? And then, of course, if time permits and if the platform allows, I'll certainly entertain any Q&A. All right? So the first thing, and I will not talk through all these bullets for you, but I'll talk about the first one and the fifth bullet. Communities in Schools is the nation's largest and most effective dropout prevention organization. We have affiliates across the country, as far west as California, as far east here as Norfolk. And if we slide down to that fifth bullet, Bloomberg carried out a study last year, 2014, and they took a look at all the organizations across the nation that are providing national work in the field of integrated student supports. And for those of you that may not be familiar, we're talking about wraparound services, identifying students in need, figuring out how to wrap services around those students collectively. They took a look at the organizations providing that work over the nation, across the nation, and they found that there are 9 organizations, including Communities in Schools, doing that work. And of those 9, we are serving 1.5 million students. And as you'll see from bullet 5, Communities in Schools is carrying the lion's share and serving 1.3 million of those students. And we're okay about carrying that lion's share, because if you take a look at the last bullet, across the nation, 99% of our students remain in school, 96% graduate, and 84% achieve their academic goals. And to keep things in context, we're referring to students that have been identified as high risk of dropping out of school. These aren't your students, and we had a great young lady behind us. She's going to make it. She's going to be very successful. She's getting award letters from many colleges and acceptance letters from many colleges, and I applaud her for that. But we have a lot of students that aren't in that same position, and those are the students that communities and schools seeks, and we assist and look at the data that we're able to produce on those students. I think it's phenomenal. Now, you very well may have a valid argument. You may look at that and say, well, Quentin or Mr. Brown, when you look at a national organization, you can always have the cream of the crop that's carrying the load for everybody else. You have a huge affiliate out in Texas and doing phenomenal work, and 100% of their students are graduating. And you have a couple of small affiliates where the students aren't doing anything. And they're going to, you fill the numbers in, and the averages are going to weigh out, and it's going to look great. So what are we doing here in the Hampton Roads? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here in the Hampton Roads, we are providing the exact same model that we're providing across the nation. We're wrapping those services around students. We're identifying what they need, and we're getting them connected to the resources and services that they require to be successful. We've been doing it for over 35 years, and I've been doing it for over 9. At this point, about 9.5 years. I come to this by way of CIS of Richmond before being requested to come lead the affiliate here. And we are implementing that exact same model that's being successful across the nation. Our site plan, I'm going to jump forward, I'm going to jump back. I do want to talk about that site plan, which is a part of our model. Now, it looks a bit fuzzy, but don't worry about it if you can't read it. The point is showing that to you is that when we roll out into a partnering school, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, we're not providing haphazard services to students and hoping that we hit big and hoping that we can serve 10 students and out of the 10, 8.5 are going to be successful. That's not our approach. We are an adaptive and flexible model, but we don't do things haphazardly. So every year in every school that we're in, again, every year, this is done every spring for the upcoming school year, in every school that we're in, we carry out what we call a needs assessment. And the needs assessment assesses parents, teachers, students, faculty, partners, everyone involved and invested in that school community. And from that needs assessment, we create a site plan. And this is only one page of the site plan. Site plan can be anywhere from 10 to 20 pages, representing 5 to 10 to 15 goals for that school year. And the important things that I want to point out are the different sections of that site plan. We're going to take into account what the challenges are, and we're going to build a program around that challenge. So if the challenge in elementary school is bullying, we're going to build a program description around that situation. If it's transitioning middle school students into high school, we're going to build a program around that challenge. The target population, very clearly, who are we working with and the number that we expect to serve in that population? Is it ninth grade males? Is it ninth grade females who are living in a particular community? We're going to know very clearly who we're working with. The dates and frequency of the programs and initiatives that we're providing to those students. The providers, who are we partnering with? We do not do this work alone. Remember, we're not in the business of replicating or duplicating services. We're in the business of coordinating, collaborating efforts. So who are we going to partner with? We're going to see very clearly. And then, of course, the data. We have to be able to produce and demonstrate to people what we're doing and how we're making a difference. And through that, and this is not done in isolation on our own, within our own site coordinator, or within myself. This is done in collaboration, coordination with our school principal. They have to sign off on this before we move forward. So this site plan is not only tied to the needs assessment of this, to the needs of the school, but it's also tied into the school improvement plan if there is one for that school. So we're not working towards goals that are taking us over here, and the school is working towards goals taking us here. We're working collectively to impact the school through one avenue. Jumping back. So how about our results? So equally impressive results. Last year, we closed out last school year serving 2 schools, IC Norcom High School in Portsmouth and our Performance Learning Center, which I'll talk a little bit more about here in Hampton. And at the end of the 13-14 school year, we had over 900 students served through whole school initiatives. We had over 160 students who were coordinated with integrated student supports. Those, and I will add a note there that integrated student supports have been studied independently, and they've been demonstrated to impact students successfully as they progress on through high school, to see those students successful and graduate high school. And of those students we serve, 89% improved behavior, 88% improved attendance, and 72% improved academics. So are there affiliates out there doing better than communities and schools that Hampton Roads? Sure. But the point I want to make here is that we aren't being folded into the national statistics and we're hanging down here at the bottom percentile. We are providing quality work that is demonstrating proven results here in the Hampton Roads. Now, let's drill down a little further about our Performance Learning Center. Most people in this room who are very familiar with communities and schools in Hampton will connect us immediately to the Hampton Performance Learning Center over at the campus at Lee. And I think that's phenomenal. We've done outstanding work there. But the point I want to make here in this slide and through this part of the presentation is that communities and schools is far more than the Performance Learning Center. Do we love to hang our hat on the Performance Learning Center? Yes, we do. We absolutely love it. And you can see why. We are one of 4 in the state of Virginia, 3 being in Richmond, 1 being in Hampton. And having a conversation with one of our state representatives last year, she mentioned to us that our Hampton Performance Learning Center was outperforming the other 3 in Richmond. And that's because of the support we've gotten from you guys, from Dr. Shiflett, the teachers, and the administration there at that Performance Learning Center, and those partnerships that we're making through communities and schools that has helped us become the top performing Performance Learning Center. Now, Mr. Brown, there are only 4. You're right. But remember, we're working with students that have been identified as dropouts or have already dropped out of school. And we're graduating them at a rate of 90% since we've opened our doors. These students are coming to us with need, with challenges, and we're sending them out our doors with standard high school diplomas. Not substandard, not certificates. They're leaving with standard high school diplomas. So if a student graduated from the PLC and they graduated from Hampton High School and you knew nothing about it, when you saw those 2 pieces of paper, you would not be able to tell the difference. That paper demonstrates their home high school, which could be Kickingham, which could be Phoebus, which could be Hampton. You wouldn't know that they went through a Performance Learning Center. And they're out there competing with students that have graduated with, I don't know what you call them, higher marks, and they're competing. We have a partnership there with Bryan and Stratton. We have partnerships with many different organizations and groups over at the PLC. But for the sake of time, I want to talk about Bryan and Stratton, their Jumpstart program. And this is not new. This isn't a new initiative that doesn't take place in other high schools. It's a standard model. But again, thinking about the students that we're serving, we're having students leave our school with at least 6 credits that they don't have to take to Bryan and Stratton. They can take them anywhere they want to take them at no cost. When we get our students, we get them engaged, we get them graduated, they have no time to be free. They graduate from the PLC, we get them enrolled, and we send them out to be successful either in the workforce or in college. As of September, from September 2014 till, and I think I created this last month, as of mid-February, we had already graduated 10 students. Doesn't sound like a lot. Your traditional high school set up to take students in September. You produce graduates in June, sometimes over in the summer, how many credits they have. But our PLC is set up where we can graduate students when they receive the credits that they need to graduate. And since September, and this is only in the past, I don't know how many months that is, someone can count it, maybe 6 months, we've graduated 10 students. And we know where those students have gone. 5 have gone to college, 4 have gone to work, and 1 has gone to the military. And I love hanging my hat on that, and we're not finished. We've been doing this for those of you that don't know, we've been doing this for 8 years now. And we expect to continue doing this, and we will only get better. I'm not sure of the structure that was here before I got here, but we've made some changes, and we've really hit the ground running with our PLC since I've been here, and we only see up. So where are we headed? Our vision. Our vision for Hampton Roads is that we create a pipeline of success that reduces every opportunity for our students to fail. We start as early as pre-K, and we work our way up through high school. And specifically here in Hampton, if the traditional high school setting isn't for that student, we have a Performance Learning Center to catch them. So we're removing every opportunity for them to fail. And when we remove those opportunities to fail, we plug them up with opportunities to be successful. So when our students leave high school, when they leave communities and schools out of whatever high school they're in, we know that if they have that stamp of communities and schools, again, students that likely would not have made it, when they leave that high school, they're going to go and be successful wherever they go. Not only to get there, but to remain there. We look at the statistics across the nation, we send a lot of students to college, but we also bring a lot of students home. We want our students to get there and stay there until it's time for them to come out. In Hampton, we've talked about the Performance Learning Center. As of this week, we hired we made a hire. Well, she started this week. Actually, yesterday I had my first meeting with her, first meeting / training. And we're going to start over in Hampton High School. We're excited to partner with Principal Davis and Principal Hardy over there. We've had several conversations with them, and we're looking forward to it. She'll probably hit the ground probably next week or the week after once we finish training, but we're looking forward to that opportunity. After that, we're going to roll out to Lindsay Middle School. We've had great conversations with Dr. Shiflett and a couple afterwards. I went over and presented to her leadership team, and we're excited to go over there and partner with Principal Bird Wright over there at Lindsay. And shortly after that, we're going to roll back into Andrews Pre-K 8 school. And what you see happening here, I'm sure you've probably picked it up, is that we're creating that feeder pattern, picking our students up in pre-K, transitioning, working with them all the way up through high school. High school isn't working. We have a PLC to catch them. They lose the opportunity to fail. And we're not here to replace our teachers by any means, by any stretch of the imaginations. We are not teachers. Our teachers carry the brunt of that work. But we can't expect our teachers to save every student when they bring so many challenges to school. Our students bring challenges that we didn't have to bring to school, and they're having to deal with it day to day. And we expect our teachers to instruct and be nurses and moms and dads and everything. It's a challenge. So we're there to support them. And that's what we have been doing. We'll continue to do it. But we can't do it alone, just like our teachers can't do it alone. It's going to take the support from the community. City council, school board, local schools, parents, community, business leader, and the list goes on, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want you to see the word support and turn those two P's into dollar signs. I don't want you to do that. Support for us are those 3 T's, your time, talent, and treasure. We need people out there in the community being advocates for us. I can't take this message and share it. There may be, 60 people in the room, so to speak, and some people watching on TV. But I can't carry the message alone. I need people that believe in the work that we do, a strong board, which we have, and board member is here in the room tonight, and I thank them for the support. We need people around us carrying, a couple of board members. We need people around us carrying that message for us because I can't carry it by myself. Do we need money to move this forward and see this model go to scale? Yes, absolutely. We are a 501c3, we're a nonprofit. I have to go out and raise money and generate the support to do the work that we have to do. That's a given. I don't have to talk about that. But we need additional layers of support to move this forward as well. I've been doing this work, again, just shy of 10 years. I started in September 2005 in Richmond, and I've continued with the organization. I've gone and grown throughout the organization, and I thoroughly enjoy what I do. I'm glad to come back home. I grew up in Suffolk, so spending some time in Richmond and getting the opportunity to come back home is phenomenal. We just partnered with Suffolk Public Schools, and it feels good to be able to do that. It feels good to do it here back in Hampton Roads. So with that, that's who we are. I'm probably over my expected time, but I hope the message that I delivered was one of quality, that you received some new tidbits from about communities and schools. So with that, I conclude, and if there are any questions or thoughts or comments, I'll take those.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for
Welcome.
report. Are there questions from board members?
He's got a comment.
Mr. Harper?
Mr. Brown, you certainly cannot exceed your time at that microphone. If it takes
Thank you.
as long as you can to report this good news, then we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And let me just say that it's almost like pumping air into dead people. When you get kids, I'm serious, when you get kids that have dropped out and their future is bleak, and you bring them back and pump that air into them, and that revitalization and that positiveness, and it becomes the thing where they can realize a future like anybody else. So your time at the mic is very well appreciated.
Well received. Thank you.
There is no limit.
Thank you.
Mrs. Henry? I'm sorry, I thought you were pointing at someone.
I was wondering if Mr. Pearson was going to say yes, because he's a big fan. I just wanted to say I enjoyed. Time has gotten crazy with snow. I don't know how long ago it was that I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Mr. Brown. What we're talking about with communities in school is synergy. It's not another person. It's not more personnel. It's creating energy through partnerships. And I know when I was at Phoebus High School, I had teachers who discovered a wonderful fact about our city. And that fact was that when you asked anyone in the community for specific help with a specific situation for students or a specific opportunity, they were never told no. We are fortunate that we have that kind of community that wants to support our young people in our schools. But a teacher in their classroom, particularly if I'm having to catch students up who have been behind and need all the encouragement just to get through English 11, to go out and find those individuals and find those connections. And the conversation that Mr. Brown and I had was about the idea that he's not going to hire a whole lot of staff to come in and do jobs for Hampton City Schools. We have people. They're effective and they're doing a good job. But he is in a position to work some magic in terms of getting partnerships and people who can help us in very specific ways. And the secret of that is always to say, could you do this program for this number of students in this way, and it will help us in this manner? And if you can be that specific, this community will never say no to you. And that's the wonderful thing about being part of Hampton and Hampton City Schools. But really appreciated your conversation, and we'll have to keep that energy going.
Oh, we will. We will. No doubt.
I just want to add that Dr. Shiflett and I think Will Moffitt, one time served on the board here in Hampton for communities and schools, so we're well aware of the success that you have and have had in the past. Everybody knows I'm a staunch supporter of the Performance Learning Center. What I see here, and I hope it can come to fruition, is that once you start with a younger age student, some of those students may not be at the Performance Learning Center when they become 15, 16, 17 years of age. And so those wraparound services that you provide for those students may channel them into a path where they may not end up at the Performance Learning Center at Hampton High School because they're high school age students. Then they may transition to the Performance Learning Center. And you're so right, our teachers do so much every day in that classroom. They need some help with some students who come to school with problems that beyond the reach of a teacher who is supposed to be educating students. So hope you have some success.
We will. We will.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Mr. Brown.
All right.
Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us tonight.
Thank you.
And
Dr.
I
Shiflett.
do have a comment too. Mr. Brown has been a tremendous addition to our CIS work here in the Hampton Roads area. Previous to coming on board, Mr. Pearson mentioned that we did have a CIS of Hampton. And then we determined that it really would benefit us to collaborate regionally on this effort. And so we began the CIS of Hampton Roads. And at that point, we looked for someone who could lead that effort. And I think you saw the passion in Mr. Brown tonight. And I just want to thank you for all you've done and the work that you've been able to accomplish in the time that you've been here with the Hampton Roads group. And I will continue to support your efforts in my retirement life because I really believe in the work that's being done here. I know when we think about CIS in Hampton, we think about the PLC because that's how we started with CIS. But I hope you saw tonight that it's much bigger than that and that it can provide so much more resources and help, assistance to our schools. And so I'm really excited to see that we're now trying to get the full complement of the program. So I want to thank you for everything you've done. Okay, our next presentation, and this might really interest our young people here from Langley, is the proposed 2015-2016 school calendar and a draft of the 16-17 planning calendar. Dr. Haynes, I'll turn it over to you.
And actually, Dr. Shiflett, while he's pulling his slides up, I'll just mention a couple folks slipped in during Quentin Brown's presentation. Our mayor, Mr. George Wallace, joined us and is here, as well as Councilman Billy Hobbs. Thank you all for joining us.
Good evening, Dr. Shiflett, Mrs. Mugler, Mr. Pearson, and board members. My name is Darifa Jones, and I'm a teacher at Phoebus High School on the calendar work team. I'm joined by Missy Powell-Riedel, a kindergarten teacher at Burbank Elementary School. Our purpose here tonight is to share with you the recommendations of the calendar work team. Our charge in developing the 2015-17 calendars was to recommend a 2-year calendar that supports continuous improvement of student achievement and professional learning for employees. receive feedback on 2015-16 and 2016-17 calendars, and to continue the support of the Regional School Calendar Agreement. The calendar work team is comprised of a diverse group of parents, teachers, support personnel, community members, and administrators. I'd like to take this time to present our members. If they would please stand. As we began our task, we understood the importance of developing a calendar that met state requirements, which included 140 clock hours per year for high school courses in order for a student to receive credit for the class, the yearly requirement of 990 hours of elementary and middle school students, and a minimum of 180 school days. As part of the Peninsula Regional Calendar Initiative, we followed the common winter and spring break dates that were agreed upon by the Peninsula School Divisions. In addition, we included the Regional Professional Development Day designated at the end of the first semester. We also built in additional days in case schools needed to be closed due to severe inclement weather, and included time for professional learning, unencumbered teacher work time, and parent-teacher conferences. Our recommended calendars will continue to support Hampton City Schools employees' families on the peninsula who have children in school divisions other than Hampton. Now Missy is going to go over the specifics of our calendar recommendation.
Prior to beginning our meetings, we gathered input from staff, students, parents, and parents about their preferences for the calendar. We had nearly 1,800 responses. Nearly 55% of those came from staff members, 40% came from parents, and 5% came from students. Our work team met faithfully beginning in January. We reviewed the regional calendar proposal as well as feedback we received from staff and parents. We used the Connect Ed message system to inform parents and staff that the draft calendar was available and to invite feedback. We were able to reach about 86% of our parents and staff members through Connect Ed. The work team read and carefully considered all of the feedback we received on the calendars presented. Each year, we receive questions about why we do not honor Veterans Day with a school holiday. While we do not recognize Veterans Day by closing schools for students and staff on Veterans Day, we do honor our veterans in a variety of ways at each of our schools. We take this opportunity to welcome veterans into our schools, to have lunch with our students, and to attend programs honoring their dedicated service. We also use this day to teach our students about the many contributions and sacrifices our veterans have made and continue to make for us through their military service. Each year, school administrators and teachers receive information from Alma Dietz, our social studies curriculum leader, on suggestions for lessons on Veterans Day. We fully embrace all that this special day has to offer. Another comment we received frequently this year was to build a full 2-week winter break for the 2015-16 school year. At this time, the recommended calendar reflects the regional calendar agreement to end with the last day on December 18th, 2015, and to return to school on January 4th, 2016, giving a full 2 weeks for winter break. The draft calendar 2016-17 currently has a winter break beginning on December 21st, 2016, with schools reopening on January 2nd, 2017. However, in light of the feedback, we will revisit this next year with the regional calendar work team to determine if this can be adjusted. The recommended calendars we are going to show you tonight reflect the regional calendar decisions, the best thinking of our work team, and the input of our staff members, parents, and community members. As you can see, the largest percentage of survey respondents preferred 2 full weeks off at winter break. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving was a strong second, and Veterans Day came as a third choice. When asked where the calendar should take the time to fund the preferences for time off, the largest percentage of responses said to take the half-day exam days at high school and the early close days. About a third of respondents said they could also live with lengthening the school day, adding days to the end of the year, or giving up the holiday on President's Day. Other respondents were clearly opposed. Nearly all respondents opposed giving up spring break or Memorial Day to support other days off. As is our current practice, this is a 2-year calendar, 1 year to be approved and a 1-year draft or planning calendar. We continue to recommend early release days for elementary and middle school students to allow for protected teacher work time. Our recommended calendar also maintains a conference day in an effort to support parent-teacher communication. The hours will be flexible within each building and will accommodate working parents' schedules. This day is on Election Day when our schools are closed to students and used as polling places for voters. Early release days for elementary and middle school students are scheduled at the end of the 9 weeks to assist teachers in closing out the 9 weeks, planning for the upcoming 9 weeks, and professional development for 180-day employees. We also continue to recommend that the end of the first semester include 1 full day of unencumbered teacher work time. Our recommended calendars maintain the current calendar of 194 teacher days and is comprised of 181 days for students, 7 teacher pre-service days, 2 school learning plan days, teacher work days, and the 3-day, 18-hour professional development requirement, which is outside of regular teacher contract hours. The recommended calendars also maintain the half-day exam schedule at the end of the first and second semester for high school. In summary, the calendar work team recognizes the importance of continued professional growth for our staff in support of student learning. Division-wide professional development will take place on 1 day during the pre-service week in August. This day will enable teachers and administrators, curriculum leaders, and other support personnel to participate in learning opportunities that will be designed to improve and enhance instructional strategies and positively impact student achievement. The Regional Professional Development Day at the end of the first semester is an agreed-upon date across the region which will allow school divisions to collaborate on professional development for teachers and support personnel, such as special educators, teachers of gifted, New Horizons personnel, and school counselors, to name a few. This day will also be assigned as a school or building-level professional development day for teachers who are not identified to participate in the Regional Professional Learning Opportunity. The Unencumbered Teacher Work Day will provide time for staff to regroup, plan, and prepare for the second semester. Our work team feels these calendar recommendations accommodate the needs of many of our Hampton families who are affected by the neighboring Peninsula District's calendars. There is 1 inclement weather day and a bank day built into the calendar. We are recommending that the inclement weather day be removed from the end of the school year if it is not needed. The early close days will include all schools and employees and will be 2 hours earlier than the regular dismissal time. These days are generally scheduled before a holiday or break and are adjusted each year based on how the holidays fall during the year. This year, the early close days we recommend are November 25th, February 12th, and May 27th. As agreed upon by all of the Peninsula School Divisions, spring break will continue to be the first full week in April, which will give us a consistent block of instructional time to review and prepare students for annual SOL assessments. As you are aware, the General Assembly has not yet approved a change in the Code of Virginia allowing school divisions to have local control of the school calendar and determine if they want to begin school prior to Labor Day. Therefore, these calendar proposals do not include a pre-Labor Day start for school. As a work team, we continue to support legislation that will provide for local control of the calendar. The proposals before you will allow Hampton City Schools to meet the learning needs of our students while benefiting from a regional school calendar. We recommend approval of the 2015-16 school calendar and the 2016-17 planning calendar. At this time, we are prepared to answer any questions you may have of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very thorough report on the calendar. I just have one quick question. I'm gonna let my colleagues ask questions, but are you sure you don't want more inclement weather days?
Dr. Haynes, did I call that question?
Well, we consider this a very courageous task.
It is a courageous task, you are right. Are there comments or questions from board members? Mr.
I
Samuels.
had a question regarding the inclement weather day. After the severe winter we've had this year, is it possible that you could, would the committee revisit the calendar and may include additional day? Because, you know, we really don't know what we're going to be expecting next year. We could have the similar weather patterns next year. So that's my only question.
One of the tasks or challenges we have when looking at the calendars, when we're trying to either get an additional inclement weather day or take another day off for a particular holiday or event, you have to ask yourself where you're going to get it from or where you're going to pull from. And the way this calendar is designed for this upcoming year, there's very little room for us to find another day for it and still provide that 2 full weeks for winter break, which was the #1 request and option for the upcoming calendar. So in an effort to make certain we were able to do that and be consistent with the regional calendars, it did result in us having one less day in terms of inclement weather for the upcoming school year. Dr. Shiflin and I have been talking, but we're pretty confident that some of the banked hours would accommodate us in terms of being able to address it if, in fact, we had to add another day into the calendar.
And remember, we still have the President's Day, we have the half-days that we could utilize. And so, we still have the options of some of the early release days, early close days that could be utilized.
And I will say this, not to shortchange the other districts in the region, but out of the 6, Hampton and maybe one other school division that actually has these days built into their calendars. The remaining 4 at this point have no days built in their calendars for possible inclement weather for the upcoming school year. So they too would be taking a chance and looking at things like President's Day and the half days or the early close and early release days as well.
Other comments or questions from board members? Mrs. Henry?
Well, there are so many advantages in being in a regional calendar that we do have to kind of work with our regional partners. But if this is the first year in forever that it worked out well for us to have 2 weeks at Christmas, and winter break is much appreciated that way. But the consequence of the legislature still saying school must start after Labor Day, and the request to have, and the agreement we have with the region to have 2 weeks at Christmas, is that the calendar goes till you're aiming at the 20th of June, June 17th this time. And those years that I experienced where school didn't get out till the 18th or 19th, it's painful by that time. It's hot, and kids want to be at the beach, and they have folded their tent. And so if you want to keep getting 2 weeks for winter break, you need to tell your state legislator to let us have some flexibility, because if we could start again like we did this year, very early in September, because Labor Day happened to fall early, it makes our life a lot easier. The Daily Press was suggesting that schools could be more creative with their schedule. Well, we can't be but so creative if the legislation still exists that says when we must start school. Thank you so much for all your work. This is the committee that you get to be on for life. Yes. And it's a good thing you all get along and work so well together. And you've broken in Dr. Haynes, so he understands the process now. I appreciate that.
Yes. I guess that was my next question, is how long have each of you been on the calendar committee?
I've been on the calendar committee since Dr. Leary instated it, which would have been, I think, 11 years ago, so 3 presidential elections.
She took it over from me. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I think I've been on there maybe 6 years.
Uh-huh.
So
And you have 20 more to go.
She's been on since my my 8-year-old was here.
Oh, so 8 years.
Yes, 8 years. I want to give you
flies
credit.
when you're having
Yes.
fun, right?
And we do have a wonderful time.
Yes.
Good. I think we have a few more questions from board members. Mrs. Smith?
I just wanted to thank you so much for putting in that extra plug also about the General Assembly and having flexibility with our start date. And just to add on to what Ms. Henry said, it's not just so we can have flexibility and have full weeks of holidays. It also helps with testing, and a lot of schools around the nation, there's a national AP testing date, and our kids can't start school till a month after all these other kids in the nation, and we're already starting out behind. So we have a lot more work that we have to do, and there's a lot more to it, a lot more reasons for that than just the flexibility. So thank you for bringing that up again. Keep pushing.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Mr. Harper?
I just got one thing to say, ladies. Sometimes longevity does equal proficiency. The longer you do something, the better you get. So
You're absolutely right.
stay with it, please.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Mrs. Jones, who is a teacher at Phoebus, and Mrs. Riedel, who teaches at Burbank, for taking the lead and being willing participants in presenting this year for the calendar. They took it on without hesitation, and they told me, you just stand over here and click, and we'll do all the talking. But I can't say enough about the committee as a whole, and I know we had them stand up. I don't know if many of them have left, but they do a great job at making certain this all comes together with full understanding of how we work alongside the regional committee as well. So thanks again for all your hard work, and we appreciate your time and efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the report. Thank you, Dr. Haynes. Dr. Shiflett?
Our next report is part of our budget work, and it's a presentation of Funds 51, 60, 65, and 94 for FY16. Ms. Scott.
Let me see if I can find it. So, I believe Dr. Presentation. Thank you. All right, it's going to come up here in a second. I am fortunate tonight to have a very capable group of people that are going to do the work of presenting this information to you. So all I'm going to do is introduce them and turn it over to them. To present Fund 51, which is Food and Nutrition Services, we have our Food Services Director. Oh, I was going to say she moved. Our Food Services Director, Ms. Edwina Forrest, and she will start. She'll be followed by our Finance Director, Ms. Vizel Townsend, who will present Funds 60 and 65. And following her will be Ms. Beth Mayer, who will present Fund 94. And these ladies are all experts in what they're going to talk about, so I'm just going to turn it over to them. Ms. Forrest?
Good evening. Okay, we have before us our Food and Nutrition Services FY16 budget. And looking at the budget, our budget reflects a $609,000 increase in revenue from FY15. And our increase comes from our USDA donated commodities, our a la carte sales, and a 10-cent increase in our paid lunch price, which I'll speak about in a few minutes. We also are anticipating an increase in our expenditures by $598,000, and this comes from our salaries, our benefits, and our much-needed equipment that we need for our food service operations, as well as some supplies. We are using $578,000 of our fund balance to balance out our FY16 budget. But with using these funds, Food and Nutrition Services still will maintain a financially sound fund balance. Our paid lunch price for school year 15-16 will increase by 10 cents. And this increase is based on us using the USDA paid equity calculator, which gives school food authorities, it shows them how much they need to increase their paid lunch prices. And what you have before you is our price increase over the last 2 years. And still with this increase, Hampton City Schools continues to have the lowest paid lunch prices as compared to our other school divisions that are in our surrounding area. At this time, do you have any questions for me?
Mrs. Henry?
Talk about salary increase. You mentioned salary increase?
Yes, we have a 1% salary increase that is reflected in our budget, and the benefits is included in that increase.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members on Fund 51? You must have covered it so well.
Well, thank you. I will turn it over now to Vizelle Townsend.
Thank you.
Okay. You know, I'm not Mac oriented. Oh, thank you. Good evening. I'm here to present the reimbursable projects, which are our grant funds for Fund 60. Overall, we've had a decrease in funding for next year of 7.43%. Primarily, the decrease is in our federal funds. The detail of the summary is here as to the state funds. State funds declined overall by $6,600, and our federal funds declined $1.5 million. That's due to the fact that our Title I funds are decreasing. Title I is $426,000 decrease, and our Title I school improvement is going away next year for $1.2 million, almost $1.3 million. So that's a huge decline for us with federal funds. In addition to our state and federal funds, we have tuition from our various areas, adult ed, regular summer school, driver's ed, and we have a decline in overall in that area of $21,492. In other funds, we have a decline in our vending and concessions. We have an increase in our PEG television and decline in the other areas, which is a slight decline overall of $3,000, $3,485. In total, our reimbursables for the year will decline by $1,579,000, and that makes up our 7.43% decline. Are there any questions on the reimbursable projects for next year?
Any questions on Fund 60?
The next area that we're going to look at is our rental income, which is our Fund 65. Rental income consists of these various funds. Mallory, we are renting a dental office at our wellness center. Girls Inc. of Greater America, Source for Teachers, and Mary Peak. We have a little miscellaneous revenue and a little investment income that comes from our rental income. Overall, we're going to increase the budget by $3,324, which was a net increase of 1.64% for the fiscal year. The largest increase in our rental income is the smallest area of rental. We're renting to Source for Teachers. They're only been in our building for they're only going to be in our building for half the year this year and then next year. And while it looks like a huge increase, it's a very little amount of income that comes from that particular area. Are there any questions on the rental income?
Any questions on Fund 65? I just have and you may not know it, somebody else may. The Girls Inc., where are they located?
They're located at Mallory.
At Mallory, okay. Just wasn't broken out. This, like Mallory was up at the top and then it down there. Okay. I thought so, but
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions on Fund 65? Okay, move on. Fund 94.
Hello. I'm here to present the Fund 94, which supports our athletic programs in Hampton City Schools. We're estimating that we'll have the same amount of revenue as we did last year. We have $533,500. $287,000 coming from Fund 50 transfer, and to note $41,500 coming from the fund balance. Do I need to go down? Sorry about that. All right. Yeah, we need to go back up. Okay, so we have the 533,500 in the revenue and in the expenditures. The 41,500, 31,500 will be reoccurring. $10,000 of that is to do a capital replacement for the Bethel High School scoreboard. They're in need of a scoreboard, so we're going to invest in that next year. Overall, the other numbers are exactly the same. We look like we're going to be just fine with the same kind of budget. Do you have any questions?
Any questions on Fund 94?
I guess I do. I have to be ornery.
Mrs. Henry?
The fund balance, was that to some extent because of extra expenditures this year, because of additional transportation costs and so forth resultant from changes in Virginia High School League's organizational scheme?
Yes, ma'am. When Virginia High School League reclassified, we're doing a lot more transportation, the money it went up a lot.
And it looks to me like it might be affecting revenues in terms of attendance at major events as well.
It does when we're playing opponents that are on the other side of the water. We have very low attendance when, say, Western Branch comes over and plays Bethel. But then now when you have the Hampton versus Hampton teams, we still have great attendance. Next year, though, I'm very hopeful. The district is playing each other twice, which probably doesn't mean that much to you, but it will keep us close and we won't be traveling as much. And the revenue should come up with the attendance coming up. Bethel, Kickintan, and Hampton will all be in 5A, where right now, Bethel and Kickintan are in 6A. So that really, it's going to make a big increase in our revenue. But I didn't show that because I didn't want to be too optimistic. I wanted just to play it safe.
Okay.
Because that's the kind of girl I am.
And we'll have some actuals to look at next year.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I thought that was, part of the difficulty, and I know you're very careful steward of all those monies and work some miracles on transporting people so that it's not more than one bus going to a location far away. But nevertheless, it's a big challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on funds?
Just a quick one.
Yes, Mr. Harper.
Ms. Mayor, in regards to the reclassification of the teams and the alignment,
yes, sir.
I understand that some of the games, there aren't enough people that even pay the referees.
I'm sorry, sir.
In some of the games, basketball games,
yes, sir.
The attendance is so low that you may not even have enough money to pay the referees.
That is true.
And that's kind of stupid.
We had one game that we brought in $240, and our referees will cost us $270 for that night. And then you have to throw in security and the workers. So we take a big hit. So we rely on the games that we do really well at to balance it out.
Get jealous of our good Hampton teams.
That's right. We've got the skills.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Mayer?
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you so
Mugler.
much. Dr. Shiflett?
Our final report for this evening is Mrs. Scott with our monthly business operations report.
And again, having such a capable team here, I just felt like I should share the limelight. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Townsend to report to you this month.
Good evening again.
Hello.
I'm here to report our status of operations as of January 31st, 2015. Our revenues at that time were $105,991,838. and our expenditures were $106,774,309. Both of them are on target for this time of year, and both are slightly higher than what we spent at this time last year based on our budget of 20,000 students, our ADM of 20,000 students for this year. We looked at fall membership for September 30th, which was 20,085 students. Based on prior years, we revised our ADM from March of 2015 to 19,884. This results in a loss of 116 students for us. Based on that, our decreased enrollment, we're going to have a loss of $612,000. And this is inclusive of changes of the governor's caboose budget on December 17th, 2014. We anticipate covering the shortfall with attrition. And if you have any questions at this time, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions on the operations report?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Shiflett?
That concludes our reports.
Thank you. We'll move now to the hearing of any delegation or presentation of any written communications or petitions. Ms. Bowers, would you read the protocol, please?
Citizens are invited to address the school board on matters of public concern about the school division. Speaker forms are available prior to the start of the meeting. If you wish to address the school board, please complete the form and give it to the clerk. Each individual will have 5 minutes to speak. All comments shall be directed to the school board. Speakers may not yield their time to another. Speakers should address the school board with decorum on policy issues and refrain from personal attacks. Speakers shall not address matters involving individual employees or students, as these topics may violate confidentiality and are not appropriate in a public forum. Presentation of resolutions, declarations, proclamations, manifestos, awards, or other similar documents not originated under the auspices of the school board or administration is prohibited during the public comment period. The audience is asked to be respectful of all speakers. Public comment is the school board's opportunity to listen to the speaker. Since our purpose is to hear from you, the board will not engage in dialogue with the audience or whomever is at the podium. Matters requiring a response will be directed to the superintendent for research and response. The superintendent may report back on such matters at a subsequent business meeting session as appropriate. I have one more sentence. I don't think I can get it out.
The school board carefully considers your comments as we decide matters that are brought before us. We appreciate your attention and your input.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our first speaker tonight will be Mr. David Dietrich.
Good evening, members of the school board, administration. My name is David Dietrich, 139 Wilderness Road. I'd like to start out with something that I've been noticing about your meetings, and I'd like to continue to suggest that you return to something that's been a tradition in this country for probably a couple hundred years, if not more, and that's the invocation. And the word invocation means something. That means to invoke God. And I would suggest that you turn to our city council members who happen to be present, some of them in this meeting, on how they do that in their meetings and set the tone for public meetings of this nature. I really would like to see that reintroduced into our school board meetings. Moving on. 3 issues I'd like to address this evening. One is school security, the next is school performance, and the third is school enrollment. First of all, on security, and in all matters, you've certainly all taken an oath of office. to support the constitutions of Virginia and the United States. In particular, that means protecting the lives of the children in our schools from all threats, not just internal, but external. I'd like you to show the people of Hampton that you are actually concerned about the security and safety of all of our school children. So I have a series of questions I'd like to ask. What have you done since the last time I stood before you to improve the security of Hampton schools? Why do you choose to assign school resource officers to some schools and not others? Why do you think some Hampton children need to be protected while others do not? State law gives local governments broad authority to secure public facilities. Armed resource officers aren't the only option. Other remedies should be explored. Enhanced capabilities are not necessarily costly. This is about honoring your oath, protecting our children, and respecting Hampton citizens. Moving on to your educational responsibility. I continue to find missing from these meetings the true mission of an education system, a school system, and that is to prepare our children for their future lives when they graduate from our schools. And this is about moving on to college and getting jobs. Those are the issues that really need to be addressed. And so what are you doing to improve Hampton City Schools' performance toward those ends? What is the real meaning of maximizing student achievement? How do you compare the academic achievement of our students with other school systems? What makes this school system competitive? How do you apply student SOL test scores to college accession? Are SOL test scores useful for helping our students find jobs? What is the employment rate of Hampton City School graduates? What is the college acceptance rate of our students? And what is the college remediation rate of our school system graduates? What useful performance metrics do you have for HCS strategic goals? SOL test scores aren't really useful for the lives of our graduates. Graduation rates aren't really useful. Yeah, they need to graduate, but beyond that, what value does that provide to them later in life? We need metrics that really matter. How are you a voice for every child, every day, whatever it takes? When will you begin taking our children's lives seriously, not just while they're here, but later? What makes Hampton City Schools outstanding? I think you ought to be able to reach down and tell the world, tell us in Hampton, what it is about Hampton City Schools that really rises to the challenge. Finally, I'd like to ask some questions about whether or not we have illegal aliens in our school system. You may use the term immigrants, but I'm going by the law. They're being dumped in our communities around the country without our knowledge or consent. And I'd like to know if they are in our school system, where they are, where they're staying, who's paying for them, what health risks are being addressed if they are here, and what resources are being assigned to educate them. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. Our next speaker is Ms. Teresa Craig.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Craig. Hi. We wanted to tell you that we did appreciate y'all letting the school stay out because it was dangerous out there to drive, so we do appreciate that. With that being said, the weather that's coming up, I got a call before I came in here, so I thought I'd touch on that. When we show up at school, we take the children to school. Keep in mind, when you say, okay, it's too slippery, we need to start sending these kids home. It's going to take transportation at least an hour to get it with all of our bus drivers. On a good day, my afternoon runs takes me 3 hours to get the kids home. So after you make the decision to close the schools, it's going to be at least 4 hours to get them kids home. Just saying. The other thing is, we've been telling you all along that, you know, about our pay. We were cut. Well, we told you we also lost Darren Wills to Suffolk, which was a big part of transportation. The same week, that we lost him, I received this letter in the mail about our insurance. I told you when we started this out that that's one of the big reasons that you have bus drivers is for the insurance. Down here it states that an employee, a spouse, and a child could go up to as much as $830 a month. When you only bring home $1,300 a month, how much does it give you to live on? Just saying, just trying to keep it real. Oh, we still don't have a restroom at Mary Peaks, but I've already let somebody know that. I don't know what the choices are here. I've got several bus drivers coming to me and telling me that, why do I come back here and just keep on doing this every week? I keep on telling them that one person can make a difference. I've heard that here. Just one person can make a difference. I try to bring y'all new stuff every time I come in here. I tried to tell you about the handbooks. Each one of y'all should have a handbook. But there's new rules that's not in the handbook. Like, if you start your bus up, you can't leave your bus. So if it's 15 degrees outside, you got to sit on your bus while your bus warms up because you can't leave a bus while it's running. Therefore, we just sit there and freeze. I mean, the new rules are being made up as we go along. They're not in the rule book, but it's rules that we have to follow. As I said, I don't know what the answers are. I do know that you do have a good fleet of bus drivers. We proved that this week. You don't usually hear from the bus drivers. We sit back on the back burner, and that's the reason that we're in the state we are now. When I came before y'all years ago, and we were looking at this pie chart up there, it had transportation this big. Something's wrong with that. With the weather the way it was this week, of seeing all the ice on the roads, seriously, would you want your children, your grandchildren, out there with a taxi cab driver? Bringing them to and from school? I did a fire drill yesterday out at one of the junior high schools. We slid all the way across the parking lot with them trying to unload. But we did it. We slide into the parking lots, but we do it. We're here for y'all. As I had stated to my boss, I was out 2 days last week, the first time I've been out this year because my father's had 2 heart attacks in the last month. But I'm here. I've drove with pneumonia. I've drove with the flu because I'm dedicated to my job and I'm dedicated to the school system. How many employees do you have working with you that can say that, or that you can say that? And I stood up here and I said, one person can make a difference. There's actually 2 here. But it's not that we don't have the others behind us, because they want answers. And you know, I'm getting to the point where I can't give it to them. And I told y'all before when Mr. Wills left, you know, our morale's going down. It's not getting any better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Our next speaker is Melissa Politan. Have that right?
Good evening. I am Melissa Politan. I am the instructional leader at Bethel High School. I come here tonight with another teacher and 2 of my students. It has been brought to my attention that next year we will not be offering electives in the social studies department. We are going to get rid of psychology, sociology, and African American studies. I feel that this is a huge disservice to our students. Bethel is the Health and Occupational Science Academy. Psychology and sociology naturally fit in with health sciences. Students need to excel in psychology, and they need to learn how to deal with other people, which is what we talk about in my sociology class. In addition to that, this is the first year we offered African American studies. 70% of our population is African American. I teach US history. I went through the SOLs for US history. There are only 10 African American people mentioned in the SOLs. And the majority of people refer to slavery, the 3/5 compromise. It's very unfortunate that we would take away a class that would do such a service for so many of our students.
Yes, my name is Brian. I'm a junior at Bethel High School, and I've came up here because Ms. Politan has told me that y'all are taking out sociology, psychology, and African American studies. Sociology is a class that I really wanted to take, and now that it's taken out, it kind of like kicked me down, because there's not that many classes I'm particularly interested in taking that I can take, because I'm a band student, so band is going to be one of my classes. I just need to find other classes that I'd be interested in, and that was one of them. Yes.
My name is Imad Harrison. I'm also a junior at Bethel High School. Sociology is another class that I also wanted to take, and plus, like, it's just me and Brian here, but other students at the Bethel High School also wanted to take that class. I mean, they're not here now, but we've personally heard them telling us that taking these classes away they're doing a disservice, because we have to live with each other as human beings all together, and majority of this has to do with figuring out how to deal with people. So if we're learning that, then it makes us more humane and understanding towards one another. And it just doesn't make sense to me why someone would want to take that away from the kids that are growing up in the society that it is now. And I'm sure you've all seen the violence and stuff that's happened around. And I think that just would help. And that's about all I can say.
I'd like you to reconsider taking away those electives. In sociology, I require my students to do community service. We talk about issues like racism, which we all know is very important in today's society. We talk about gender discrimination, and we know that as women, we make 72 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man makes, and African American women make 64 cents, I think, about. So it's very important that we continue learning about this, that we continue educating our youth about this. When I addressed this concern with my assistant principal, I was told that we're still offering AP Psychology, and that is correct, we are. But we have several students, especially within our Health and Occupational Science Academy, that are not AP level, and they should not be punished because they're not going to be able to handle the rigor of the AP, and they should not be punished by taking away psychology. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for bringing us your concerns. Our next speaker is Ann Cherry.
Thank you, Ms. Mugler, members of the board. I'm Ann Cherry, 1402 Crispell Court, Hampton. As you know, the NAACP Hampton branch, as well as the Peninsula Pastors Council, has asked repeatedly to have community involvement in the interview process for the selection of the superintendent of schools. And as vice president of the Hampton branch NAACP, I come tonight just to bring you some information because we've done research that shows this is being done in many, many places. So this is not something that we're asking to have done that is new or unique. It has also picked up steam in terms of the community feeling that this is appropriate. We've gotten different organizations, including the Ministers Coalition for Hampton, where Bishop Cutler is the president, but we're happy to have Reverend Henderson, the former president, here as well. I shared an example Monday night at our Hampton branch NAACP, and I was very pleased because our city manager, Mary Bunting, was there, as well as some members of the City Council and others, Senator Mamie Locke. But the example I shared was about Boston. I received an email with a link from one of my friends from Innsbruck saying to me, Ann, is this what the Hampton NAACP branch is trying to do? And the link was an article from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. And it was talking about the superintendent for Richmond being one of the 4 candidates, 4 finalists for the Boston Superintendent of School job. Now, I know we've talked about confidentiality, but that was out there. And he was quoted. And it was also quoted in that article in Richmond Times-Dispatch that not only had the mayor and key members of the city asked him to stay and not go to Boston, so had the governor. So yesterday he decided not to go. He's going to remain in Richmond. But I wanted to talk about the process, because the process was all 4 of those candidates, those finalists, their names were in the articles. Nobody ran for cover. Then I found out, and going on the Boston School Division website, couldn't believe this. They live streamed the interviews with the 4 finalists. So there was no way anybody can say they're smoke and mirrors, what is there to hide, what's the secret. They did that. Then we thought about it, and when I gave that example at the meeting, I had one young man say to me, well, he said to the group actually, he said, in my hometown of Danville, Virginia, they did the exact same thing in terms of having community involvement in the interview process. And I'm glad that he's here tonight. I see him there. And he brought that up. But we decided to do some other research, and we found out that in Beverly, Massachusetts, I don't even know where that is, but they used a Bev cam to record the interviews for the superintendent search, and they televised them. Again, totally inclusive, totally open. Then we said, well, Boston is huge, so let's look at a small place. We looked at Cohorts, New York. And I had pulled that up because of the speech that the school board chairman made about it. Let's see if I can get this. After they chose 10 of their 27 applicants, and they narrowed it to 6, they had, and this is a small place, they had 2 community groups meet with the finalists. Those community groups included a broad cross-section, and I'm reading from the article, of the school community, which included parents, community members, business owners, senior citizens, faculty, and staff. These semifinalists were each interviewed by those 2 community groups, and the school board chair said, we were excited to have received such valuable feedback from these 2 groups. Jacksonville, Florida, same thing, including the community in their search. The vice chair said, citizen input will help alleviate concerns that the superintendent appointment is going to be made by 3 members of a 5-member board. And then she went on to say that it will be a community engagement where the community went over the applications, they compiled the information, they ranked the top 5 or 10, and they passed them on to the school board. We know it's your job to pick the superintendent. It seems to us you could have some community involvement in terms of the interview process. We would hope that you use things like these other departments are using, these other boards are using, social media. Long gone the day of the paper and pencil and let's interview people in the dark. That's gone. If you want to be open and transparent, we agree that this is the way to do it, and hope that each of you will ask yourselves, why is it that you don't want to? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cherry. That concludes all of the speaker forms that I have tonight. So we will move on now to our action agenda. We have 2 items on the agenda for action tonight. Item 5.01 is the revision of School Board Policy BBFA and GBACB, conflict of interest. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, move approval of action item 5.01.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Kilgore and seconded by Mrs. Smith that we approve the revision of School Board Policy BBFA and GBACB regarding conflict of interest. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Smith? Aye. Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye, motion carries. We move on to item 5.02, which is the revision of School Board Policy BDDF, voting method. Is there a motion?
Move approval, Madam Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Henry and seconded by Mr. Pearson that we revise School Board Policy BDDF regarding voting method. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to deliberation. We begin with item 6.01, which is the right-of-way agreement with Dominion Power. We have received some briefing on this proposal from Dominion Power. Are there any comments or questions or further deliberation from board members on the right-of-way agreement with Dominion Virginia Power? Okay, if there are.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
If there is, if there's nothing further, since we did not have the meeting in the second time in February, if the board would consider moving it up, it might be helpful to be able to get that on through. It's certainly up to you all, but.
I will entertain a motion on that if there's anyone
Madam
that wishes to
Chairman.
move it forward.
Madam Chairman, I move that we move the Dominion Virginia Power Agreement to an action agenda item.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Henry and seconded by Mr. Kilgore that we move the item 6.01, the right-of-way agreement with Dominion Virginia Power, to our action agenda. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for a vote?
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Smith? Aye. Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. So we will take that item up for action at this time. We are at action item 6.01, which I guess would then become 5.03, technically, which is the right-of-way agreement with the Dominion Virginia Power. This has to do with the burial of lines, power lines, on property that the school division owns, which is adjacent to Asbury Elementary School. Just for a point of clarification for the public's consumption. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, move approval of action item 5.03.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Kilgore and seconded by Mrs. Henry that we approve item 6.01, which is the right-of-way agreement with Dominion Virginia Power. Is there any further discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Samuel?
Aye.
Smith? Aye. Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6.02 on our deliberation agenda tonight, the assignment of ground leases for cell phone towers at Asbury Elementary School and Bethel High School. Is there a motion? No, sorry, we're on deliberation. I'm in the mode of voting now. I'm sorry. This being a deliberative item, are there any questions or comments or further deliberation regarding the ground leases at Asbury and Bethel High School?
And I would ask again, since we missed in February, and there was some urgency with Intelos asking about these being moved forward, if you would so consider. This is part of our contract with the tower holder, so that all they're doing is moving the company that manages the leases at each one of these towers from one company to another, if the public needs to understand what they're doing. It's an assignment.
Okay. And I will entertain a motion to move this forward to action if anyone would like to do so.
Madam Chairman, I move that we move item 6.2 to an action agenda item, making that 5.4.
Second. Been moved by Mrs. Henry and seconded by Mrs. Smith that we move item 6.02 to our action agenda, therefore making it item 5.04, reference to the assignment of ground leases for cell phone towers at Asbury Elementary School and Bethel High School. Just to give a little bit of further information about those are existing cell phone towers at each of those locations, and it is a matter of changing providing company. Is that correct, Ms. Reeves?
The underlying cell tower company is Intelos, but the actual operator of the tower is an independent company. At this time, Intelos uses one company, a company called Richmond 20 Megahertz, and they want to move it to a new company called Grandcom One. And so it's just a different entity actually operating the tower on behalf of Intelos the cell company.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or any additional questions?
Just that we shouldn't have snow days occur on school board meetings and we wouldn't have to juggle two agendas into one. We'll tell the weatherman to take care of that for us.
We'll work on that. If there are no other questions or comments or deliberation on this item, then Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye, motion carries. Next item on our deliberation agenda tonight is the Information Design and Engineering, Governor's Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, the STEM Academy proposal.
And Ms. Mugler?
Ms. Mugler,
Don't want to break.
Point of, you need one more vote.
Sorry, did I not vote?
You moved it to action, we haven't voted.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Hold that
Did I
thought.
miss that?
Okay.
Would you want to hold it for just a moment, because we're going to be asking you to move the next one to action too, if that's, then we could do them both.
We don't just change our whole action agenda.
Well, since I've stopped him in his tracks, we'll go ahead and take care of this item, and then we'll move on. Item 6.02 is the assignment of ground leases. It has been moved for action, so is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I would like to vote approval of the adjustment to the cell phone tower agreements as presented in item 5.04.
Second.
Been moved by Mrs. Henry and seconded by Mrs. Smith that we approve the assignment of ground leases for cell phone towers at Asbury Elementary and Bethel High School. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye, motion carries. We move now to item 6.03 with regard to our STEM Academy proposal, which is currently on the deliberation agenda and probably very shortly will be moving from our deliberation agenda.
And guess why? Because we missed the February 18th meeting. And Mr. White is here if there are any questions.
The board members have received a copy of the STEM application and the statement of assurances. We have had this for our reading pleasure for probably 30 days, I think. Are there any questions for Mr. White? Are we sure? Because he made a special trip out on
I
this.
think we ought to make him say something then. If
Glad to be here.
And it's cold and slippery on that dock, too. I just wanted to say that I'm glad this is going to be official. Phoebus has had the wonderful programs in technology and engineering since 1990 with the creation, with the help of our city council at that time, of a magnet program for robotics and other special programs. We've built that up with the Project Lead the Way engineering program. This is the logical next step to have the governor's seal applied to those programs, and that will give us 4 governor's academies in Hampton City Schools, and we'll be very happy to do that. And I want to commend Mr. White for his persistence and dedication in all this process that you have to go through to have programs recommended and recognized in the way that they have been. And so we're very happy to see this happen, Mr. White.
And this is generally, genuinely a collaborative effort. And I'd like to point out Mr. Beverly, principal of Phoebus High School, Mr. Godwin, Barbara Kimsey, and Debbie Russell, who have been instrumental in getting us to this stage. And not to mention about 25, 30 others, teachers, community folks, business folks.
Terrific. Any other comments or questions regarding this application? So the question of the moment then will be, is there anyone who would like to present a motion regarding moving this item to action?
Madam Chairman, I'm only going to do it if you tell me that the next item doesn't also have to move to action.
I can't make any promise.
Does the next item move to action?
Dr. Haynes?
Because I'll do 2 for 1 if we... The next item doesn't have to, it does?
He's not sleeping back there, is he?
The calendar needs to move to action as well?
We're good.
Okay.
It does. Oh, okay. All right.
We're
then.
okay. So
Madam Chairman, I would like to move that item under deliberation 6.03 be moved to an action item, which will make it at this point, according to my reckoning, action item 5.05.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Henry and seconded by Mr. Samuels that we move item 6.03, the Information Design and Engineering Governor's Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Academy proposal to action. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Now, taking action on item 5.05, which is now on our action agenda, the approval of the Information Design and Engineering Governor's Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Academy proposal. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, move approval of action item 5.05.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Kilgore and seconded by Mrs. Henry that we approve the proposal for the Information Design Engineering Governor's Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Academy. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, will you call for the vote?
Ms. Smith? Aye. Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Our final item on deliberation tonight is the proposed 2015-16 school calendar and 2016-2017 planning calendar. We did have an extensive report from the calendar team a little bit earlier in our meeting tonight. Are there any additional questions or comments or items of deliberation regarding the calendar? Okay. There being none, we'll move on to deliberation first reads. We have 3 items there. And we'll start with item 7.01, which is the revision of school board policy JFCA, student dress code.
Good evening, Ms. Mugler and Mr. Pearson, Dr. Shiflett, and members of the board. This evening, I have 2 policies that I am presenting with revisions for your approval. The first one is policy JFCA, which is our dress code policy. As you are aware, every year, the Office of Student Services convenes a stakeholder committee consisting of parents and students and administrators with Hampton City Schools. This year, we began meeting back in October to review the Student Rights and Responsibilities Handbook. We were approached to address, that committee was approached to address and revisit the dress code policy as a result of some students alleging that our policy was not quite aligned with other neighboring regional programs. And so in doing so, we reviewed the dress code policy. We are pleased to announce that it is indeed aligned, and we don't feel that it creates any issues for students who are transitioning from regional programs like New Horizons, for example. But while we were reviewing the dress policy, we looked at those other regions, we looked at their dress code policy, and we found a few things that we thought would help to improve and bring clarity to our current dress code policy. So as a result, the committee made a few recommendations for our dress code policy. Those recommendations are to include or expand the language in our current policy. Where we currently use the word clothing, we would like to expand that to include jewelry, accessories, and other items of adornment, which would encompass anything that might be a distraction to the school learning environment. And that feedback came from students as well as administrators who have had issues throughout the school year with items other than clothing. That's why we made the recommendation. We also further clarified a few things. For example, number F, where we talked about undershirts being worn as blouses or shirts. We didn't want to limit that, so we actually added a clause that would talk about underwear in general being worn as outer garments. The other recommendation would be to remove the statements that very specifically address boys and girls, and the new language would ensure that all students, regardless of their gender, are expected to dress accordingly. And then finally, a statement to be added to the policy that would indicate that the building administrator's interpretation of the policy is final, which we believe would clearly reduce, if not completely eliminate, debate about attire. And so that would conclude the committee's recommendation for this particular policy, JFCA.
Are there any questions for clarification on this deliberation for item? Yes, sir.
One quick question. Can you define designee or administration? Does that include principal, assistant principals, guidance counselors?
It does. It does. The building principal is ultimately responsible, so the building principals will designate others in the building to make those decisions for them. And that could very possibly vary from building to building. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for clarity on this policy? And this being a policy that directly affects students, perhaps, Mr. Richardson, you might want to weigh in on the deliberations next time. Not tonight, because we're just asking questions, but unless you have something tonight, but since this is just on first read, but I'm just suggesting it is a student geared policy, and you might want to give us some feedback next time. I'm sorry,
Okay. The next policy is policy JFCL, which is our search and seizure policy. And these changes are recommended as a result of the October Virginia School Board Association's recommendation. We know we receive quarterly recommendations from Virginia School Board Association. So the recommendation for this particular policy is fairly simple. They suggested or recommend that we expand our definition. When we talked about lockers, they recommended that we also include desk. So we have added desk to the current language, where it only referred to lockers prior to that. And we also added a clause in our search and seizure policy regarding electronic devices, which include personal as well as school-issued devices because of our one-to-one initiative. And so with that being said, those are the recommendations from Virginia School Board, and we thought they were excellent recommendations. So the group decided to make those recommendations for these changes, and hopefully you will choose to approve those recommendations.
Are there any questions from board members for clarification on JFCL, search and seizure? If there are none, then we'll move on to the last deliberation first read item that we have on the agenda tonight, which is the revision of School Board Policy IKE, a promotion and retention of secondary students. We have Dr. Woods here.
Yes, good evening, Mrs. Mugler, Mr. Pearson, school board members. Policy IKE has been updated to reflect middle school retention, including the consideration of student performance on the standard of learning assessment. So the language in the policy is updated to reflect that. In addition, the outdated diploma requirements were deleted.
Any questions for clarification on policy? All right, we'll take it up for deliberation next time. Thank you, Dr. Wood. That completes our deliberation first read segment of our agenda, and we will move on to informational items. Excuse me. I think we're all fighting some respiratory issues tonight. Our next meeting will be held at 6:30 here at Jones Magnet Middle School. That will be held as a budget hearing. And Dr. Shiflett will be presenting her 2015-2016 Fund 50 school operating budget on our meeting on March 11th. Public hearings will also follow on March 18th and March 25th, and we'll conclude with a vote on that. Are there other items for information, Dr. Shiflett?
I do have a couple. I'll be doing Hampton 101 at our School Administrative Center this Saturday, March 7th, beginning at 8:30. That's always a great time for residents in our area to come in and learn a little more about our city. So I'll be there along with some of our city officials they'll be talking about their departments, and I'll be talking about Hampton City Schools. We had to reschedule my superintendent's advisory board, my meeting with my young people, and it will be Monday, March 9th. I did want to also let you know that a Connect Ed did go out tonight, and it said, just pay attention to the weather tomorrow. We'll be watching. I sincerely hope that we'll have a full day of school tomorrow. But in the event that the weather starts turning to create unsafe conditions for the transportation of our young people home, we will be making that decision to send them home before the roads become too treacherous. And that concludes my announcements.
One thing about it, Dr. Shifley, we've got excellent bus drivers. So.
We do. We really do.
Absolutely. Are there any other informational items? Malcolm.
Hi, how you doing? I've committed to Virginia Commonwealth University as the college of my choice. And also, I'd like to invite anyone who would like to come to our IB Visual Arts show at Hampton High School on Monday the 16th at 5:30. I'll have some art there that I've created over the past 2 years, and if you'd like to come and see what me and my peers have done, it would be nice.
Say the date again, buddy.
March 16th.
March 16th.
At what time?
5:30. Hampton High.
5:30.
Go Crabbers.
Go Crabbers.
Miss Brown. Miss Brown would appreciate it, yes.
Awesome. Well, VCU would be very lucky to have you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Do you know what you're planning to study, or you?
I want to study mass communications and focus in creative advertising.
Awesome. They have a great program. You'll do very well there.
Thank you.
Are there any other items of information from board members? There being none, this meeting is adjourned.